Thanks for joining me for this conversation about NFTs, Kyle. I'm excited to learn about Pinata, what you and your team have been building. So please introduce yourself to me. Tell me a bit about the background of your company, and then we'll talk a bit about context of all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Kyle Tutt, co-founder and CEO of Pinata, and we are the home for NFT media. So at the end of the day, what that means is we manage the files and media for NFT projects, marketplaces. Basically, anybody in the space that is building an NFT can use us with their media or their files.
And so when people come to you and they say, hey, why should I use Pinata instead of IPFS or even a centralized cloud server, AWS, or maybe they're saying, well, there's this new blockchain that lets me put content on the chain. How do you tackle those types of questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do actually run IPFS underneath for our infrastructure. So for those not familiar, it stands for the Interplanetary File System. And the reason we do that is because IPFS generates what's called a content identifier or a CID. And so when you upload data or files to us, we can generate that CID, and that CID is unique to that file. So it can prove that the file is what it's supposed to be. And so what developers and creators do is they take that CID and they ultimately embed it into the NFT itself, the token that's sitting on a blockchain. And what that does, it allows you to prove that the file is what it's supposed to be. If the file changes, you can see that it changes, and a bunch of other benefits go along with it. But that's kind of the core cryptographic security principle that we provide. And then on top of that, we've built a whole bunch of tools and things to easily manage files and media specifically for NFTs. So we make it very easy for developers and creators to just to manage their files and media on those NFTs themselves. As far as traditional clouds, again, they don't have the IPFS CID component, and so again, just trying to make it as easy as possible for NFTs themselves.
Are there files that are too large? Like my friend Jeff Crane is creating NFT the movie. Like, could he come to you and say, hey, I want the movie, this hour-and-a-half documentary, to be on chain? Or are there songs that are too large, or an audiobook? Let's say it's an epic audiobook that's 5 megs. When you think through, or 5 gigs, I should say, when you think through content, is there a limitation to what you're looking to help people with their NFT?
So we are trying to push the boundaries of that as far as possible, and I can already hear my engineering team behind me telling me to be quiet. But we've seen things as large as 30 gigs uploaded to us, and we're trying to push the boundaries of that as much as possible. And the reason we need to do that is not only from a total storage size, but actually a file size. So if you think about it, a 10K PFP project is going to have 10,000 files, and it's going to be pretty complex. And so we're always trying to push those boundaries as far as we possibly can. So we don't have a definitive answer, but we've gone up to 30 gigs, and we're trying to go bigger on single uploads. Now, kind of depends on how you construct your NFT, but yeah, we can go pretty big.
And when somebody considers using Pinata for these things, what is the process by which they'll engage with you? There's gonna be a lot of people at NFT NYC, and you may provide a solution they have no idea about, or a solution that they could use as an alternative. So what is the process of discovery when they say, gosh, should we be holding all this content with you for our community? Do we make that decision for our communities? The community make a decision on their own? Walk me through those conversations, because I think people will be interested in the current process, so that they know the starting point in talking with you about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the easiest way is just obviously go to pinata.cloud, and you can start uploading content right away. And we both have a user interface for less technical people, more like creators. They might not use APIs or anything like that, and it feels like a Dropbox or a Google Drive. But then we have our more technical API for the developers, where they can integrate that into their application or their marketplace or whatever they're building. The most important thing that we like to talk about with us and IPFS is that you can actually transfer who's responsible for the NFT media. So what that allows you to do is at any point you can take your ball and go home, which we think is very important because if you think about NFTs, they actually need to travel across different marketplaces. There's different people that own them at different times. And how do you actually ensure that the content, the media, the files, stay up, exist, and are around for as long as the life of the NFT. And so the way you do that is, again, going back to that CID or that content identifier that I was talking about earlier. And so, we get those questions all the time. And we think that IPFS provides the most flexibility for any NFT project to transfer responsibility between whether it's the creator or the marketplace or the first buyer or the millionth buyer, it doesn't really matter. You can actually facilitate that and transfer with the NFT itself.
Is there an option for like an if this then that in the future for content creators? Like I'll take myself as an example. I capture between 1 and 2 terabytes of video content every single month. I live in a treehouse, so I basically time lapse on 4 cell phones at all times. And I record these conversations, obviously, not just on Zoom and YouTube, but on other devices.
Yep.
And so was there a possibility that like every time something uploads to Google Photos or Google Drive or iCloud, that there could be a if this and that feature that puts it inside Pinata, and then there's another thing that kind of creates NFTs? Is that where things are at, or is that more of a projection of what may be to come in the near future?
Yeah, so I think we have a Zapier Zap that kind of does that already, and we're building in functionality to pull in content because you're going to use your own tools, and so we'll pull it in from Google Drive or those types of S3, wherever it ends up being. We can ultimately get it to Pinata, and then ultimately it can become an NFT. So those are definitely where we're going. We're always trying to make tools that make it easier for people to manage their media. And then even going beyond that, maybe you turn that NFT in, or that 4 terabyte video into an NFT. You're not always going to want to actually serve the full file. And so we're helping projects and teams actually manage what it looks like to serve content. You're not always going to need to serve all of the content. It could be compressed or optimized depending on the situation. This makes it faster, more reliable, those types of things. But you still always want to have the ability to take control of the full file if you need to. And so we help people manage kind of what that structure looks like. When should we serve the full file? When should we serve the optimized file? And things like that. And it's not just images or videos. We do 3D content. We do data sets. You can upload full applications to us. So the file type, the data type, the content type is pretty limitless with us.
If I say to you NFT 2024, what type of things are you building towards, hoping for, not predicting, but projecting a positive outcome in the next 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, so we're always trying to think of like the next generation of what NFTs look like. It wasn't that long ago when they were just JPEGs, and now they are very sophisticated kind of systems, and they're really full applications at this point. And so that's where we think the market is going. But there are a lot of important concepts that we like to test. And so one of them is NFTs don't have to last forever. This is a concept that maybe on Twitter is scandalous, I guess. But we think that there's actually very interesting use cases where the files behind the NFT may only last for a second, or they appear and disappear and all sorts of things like that. We believe NFTs should actually be updatable. So you should actually be able to update the content of an NFT over time. And we're seeing people do this all over the place. It's just not common out there yet. And then NFTs can ultimately be public or they can be private. So the data doesn't necessarily have to be completely public. The files associated with it don't have to be completely public. You can manage permissioning based on NFT ownership. And so those kind of three concepts we're always trying to test out and push the limits of, and we think are going to be relevant in 2024.
If you could gather up the whole NFT NYC community, there'll be 5,000 plus people there, and you could say something to them with Times Square billboards, right? What would be kind of the final word for the folks that would be there physically, or the folks that are tuning in and watching us?
Yeah, absolutely. To me, it would be just keep pushing the boundaries of what NFTs can be used for. Again, at the beginning, they were art, but they've already vastly, become much more sophisticated, and we love seeing that. So we had an intern, or not an intern, college students at a hackathon. They built a NFT that actually scanned a physical object, turned it into a digital object, and then we're actually able to sell that as an NFT. You can push the boundaries. If you can create data, if you can generate files, ultimately it can become an NFT and can be used with NFTs. So always try to push the boundaries of what NFTs can be.
I like it. I'm with you. And I thank you for jumping in for this conversation. For anybody that's watching us live or sees the archive of this, thank you for your attention. My name's Ian Utilli. I'm one of the co-producers of NFT NYC, and I'm thankful, Kyle, that you're involved with our event, and we're happy to have you be a part of it. And I look forward to seeing you in New York.